This is my Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. It's pretty trusty, it has served me for a good 2 years at this point. I really like it, and I haven't even thought about changing it. It's a good phone, and it's really nice. But it's likely to be the last Samsung phone I ever buy, because I can't stand the direction Samsung is going in. I think what they're doing is heavily flawed, heavily wrong, and I'm not going to support a company that is going in a direction that I don't support, and is making phones that I have no interest in, and they just feel like a gimmicky, bloated mess. It's almost like Samsung is going back to the days of the S4, and S3, and S5. And that isn't good. Now, before I start this video, if you have any questions you want to ask away down in the comment section or linked in the description. I have my Instagram and Discord, you can ask there. Or if you want to argue with me because you are a Samsung fanboy or Apple fanboy or whatever, go ahead. I would love to discuss if you're civil. So let's talk about the Samsung S10 Plus. Why is it the last phone I'm ever going to buy? So for one, it's actually a good phone, which is why I bought it in the first place. The S10 Plus is a good phone because it gets all the essentials right. Apart from the fact that it uses an Exynos chip instead of the Qualcomm chip. Yes, this is the Exynos version. It has 3 cameras that make sense: a wide angle, a standard, and a telephoto. It has a fingerprint sensor that works pretty well in the screen, which is pretty nice. It's got a headphone jack. It's got a pretty good battery. It's not too thick, it's not too thin. It's like the Goldilocks phone. It got all the essentials right, which is the opposite of the newer Samsung phones, which is what we're talking about today. So the trajectory of Samsung phones and the trajectory of the way Samsung's going with their phones, the whole Galaxy line, just gets on my nerves, and it just kind of tells me that this is not really a company I want to support with my money and buy their phones. And there are a few reasons for this that I would like to get into. So for one, I don't like how they've been following Apple's anti-consumerist practices. Apple is the most anti-consumerist brand out there in the tech world. You can debate with me. Maybe it could be Tesla, but I have never driven a Tesla, so I wouldn't know. But there are a few brands out there that are distinctively anti-consumerist. They set up huge walled gardens that make people not be able to escape their system, and then they whack their wallets and whack them with very anti-consumerist practices. Things like right to repair, Apple's terrible at it, things like that, all these different things. Apple's not well known for being friendly to the consumers, and I don't like it when a company follows them so closely. Samsung acts like they're innovators, and every time inside their marketing they try to distinguish themselves from Apple to act like they're much better than Apple, when in reality they are far from better than Apple. In fact, they're very similar to Apple in a lot of things they do. Things like removing the headphone jack, removing the power brick just to save a couple of bucks or just to sell a couple more wireless earphones. It just makes no sense to me. And Samsung, every company is free to do what they want. But the thing is, Samsung is not in a position to be as anti-consumerist as Apple. Apple has the whole walled off garden with iOS, iPadOS, and macOS. Samsung doesn't have close to it. Their Bixby is a failure. There's nothing on Samsung that makes me want to stick with Samsung in particular, as opposed to other Android phones on the software side. There's nothing in particular with Samsung devices that make them stand out in the game of Android already. So when they do something anti-consumer, I can just easily swap to an Android phone like that without any concerns of transferring files, transferring apps, or getting used to a new system. Samsung doesn't have a walled garden. They don't have the ability, the privilege to just throw their weight around like that. But they're following Apple so closely in terms of all the anti-consumerist practices, which makes no sense to me and also is disgusting because I like a lot of the things that they used to do. I think Apple is the worst role model a company can have in terms of what they should do with their customers, in terms of what they should do with their phones and their products. But Samsung, despite acting like they're so different and so much better than Apple, just constantly follow Apple's footsteps in being crap. So I'm not a fan of that. So I'm not going to support Samsung over their phones like that. Second is definitely their phones haven't been that inspiring. Now I am in this fortunate position where, every time I upgrade my phone, I get top of the line, which is great. But the new Samsung phones, the top of the line ones, just aren't inspiring. Once again, because they followed Apple's pricing, the prices are insane and through the roof, and they're jacked up. But it seems like instead of building a fancy phone that will justify the cost, they set the price first and then they stuff their phone full of features to justify their cost. And that results in phones that are very janky in terms of design language and style. It's increasingly outlandish, the designs and phones and ideas from Samsung, increasingly gimmicky, almost to justify that premium, and also increasingly stuff full of things that you wouldn't care about. And this is very reminiscent to me of very many years ago with the S3, the S4 and the S5, where Samsung's phones were well known for being bloated, full of stuff that you didn't care about because they just wanted to compete with Apple. They wanted to stand out and be special and compete with Apple and all that, which gets on my nerves because instead of charging so much, they could maybe move more attention to their mid-range phones and sell really good mid-range phones. Obviously, the high-end phones make them a lot of money, which is probably why they spend so much effort and cash on it, but it just gets on my nerves, man. You know, the new phones just don't do the smartphone well. Sure, there are some interesting features with the S21 Ultra, with the fancy telescope camera, the, you know, bigger battery, I guess, spec bump, slightly better screen, but there's so many things taken away, like the power brick, like the headphone jack, like the fact that the software is still a bloated mess even 20 years, freaking 10, 12 years on the creation of Android and Samsung OS, whatever it's called nowadays, Galaxy UI, I don't know. But like, Samsung's phones are so chock full of crap that I don't give a damn about. It just like makes me go, They're not inspiring at all. They don't justify their price on the high end, and they absolutely make a very poor argument as to whether to buy them or not. Next thing I hate about Samsung's direction and what they keep doing is definitely the Exynos Qualcomm drama. Sure, Exynos used to be, you know, there was a period of time where Exynos was actually better than the Qualcomm chips. I think this was about the S7, S8 era, but ever since then, Exynos chips just have been behind Qualcomm chips. And then they send the Qualcomm versions to these American reviewers, which dominate most of the YouTube space. And the phone you get is completely different if you're not in America to the ones that American reviewers get, because everywhere else in the world except America, all the Samsung phones use Exynos chips rather than Qualcomm chips. And sure, maybe the next Exynos chip might be really good because they did collaborate with AMD on the new Exynos chip, and it's still a while before that comes out. But if that comes out and it's really impressive, that would be great for, you know, the whole mobile CPU industry, and that'd be great for Samsung users. But up to this point, they've just been shipping the inferior product, which they know is inferior, but it's cheaper to produce because it's Exynos, and then charging the same price, which gets on my nerves because it's very deceiving and very irritating. You know, someone watches a review for S21 Ultra, they see, oh, they have pretty good performance and all that stuff, and they buy it, but the phone actually runs way hotter than the one that the reviewer got. It runs way slower, the images come out worse because the image processing on the Exynos just can't touch Qualcomm, at least right now. You know, things like that. It's just so anti-consumer, and it makes no sense to me at all. Now, another reason why I don't want to support Samsung anymore, why I don't really like what Samsung is doing, is definitely the way they treat their mid-range and cheaper phones. It's like they don't care about it. It's like they take the spare part and hobble them together. They take last year's phones, take out some extra features, and then sell it to you at a cheaper price, which isn't the worst business strategy ever, but with how competitive the mid-range phone game is, it just kind of makes me go, seriously? It's a scene, it's a field that Samsung could easily dominate, frankly. I think if Samsung wanted to, they could make mid-range phones that own the market, because a lot of people actually like Samsung phones. They like the branding, they like Samsung's OS, even though I'm not a fan of it. There are a lot of things Samsung phones do well, especially on the high end, but with the mid-range phones, it's almost like they're purposely nerfed and purposely weakened to make the S21 Ultras, the Ultra phones, the Z Folds, the crazy $2,000 phones. It almost seems like the upper mid-range phones are nerfed to help make the higher end phones more worth it and look more justifiable. But the thing is, once again, Samsung doesn't have that privilege of having a walled garden. So literally, I would just go to OnePlus if I wanted to buy a cheaper phone, or like Sony or LG if I wanted to buy a phone that was in the mid-range, and I use Android. So I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to this. Samsung like throwing their weight around like they're this massive phone company, which they are. They like throwing their weight around as if they have a chokehold on their part of the industry. Well, they're wrong. With the number of times they've been dethroned as top phone manufacturer, in fact, I don't even know if they're still the top phone manufacturer for Android. It's clear to see that the Android game is much more different to Apple with iOS. Apple with the iOS have great brand loyalty. They have a very inelastic demand. So they can change the prices, they can change their product features, they can cheap out on their phone, and yet their cult of brand loyalty will keep them going very well, which is why I invest money into Apple, because why not? But Samsung, their business can go like that. They remove the headphone jack, and like a bunch of people who want a headphone jack go to LG or go to Sony. They remove the power brick, and a bunch of people who actually give a damn about accessories that come in a box just move on to another brand like that. They're an Android phone, they're in an open field where they're exposed from all sides, whereas Apple just has to care about the exit from their walled garden. You know, it's many ways of exit from Samsung versus one way of exit from Apple. And yet Samsung still acts like they have that kind of brand loyalty. And I'm sure they do. I'm sure a lot of fanboys for Samsung and Apple exist, but they don't have as close of the level of cult of brand and cult of brand image that Apple has. Yet they constantly do things that make no sense, like outlandish phone designs that make no sense, mid-range phones that are purposely nerfed just to give up, so that they can give up free business to other companies, just because they want to make their ultra high-end phones look really good. Everything Samsung does right now just isn't that inspiring to me, and it's a company that is doing a lot of things that I can't get behind. And that's why my next smartphone is not going to be a Samsung, and it's likely I'm not going to be a Samsung smartphone purchaser for a very long time, because I don't like the way they are doing things. I don't like the direction they're doing, and I'm sick of buying Exynos smartphones that are worse than the Qualcomm ones you get in America. That is probably one of the biggest reasons. And also, I really need a headphone jack. I love headphone jacks. It's essential for me. I listen to music all the time, and I want to be able to plug in a wired headphone without worrying about charging at all. Don't act like the S21 Ultra with its thummy thick size can't fit a headphone jack, Samsung. Anyway, I'm gonna end this video off here. I hope you liked this video. I hope you found it enjoyable or interesting somewhat. Just a little rant. If you did enjoy it, like and subscribe. If you didn't, whatever. You know, still like and subscribe. You can dislike and subscribe. You know, whatever. I don't care. I'm gonna end this video off here though. Thank you guys so much for watching. Goodbye. I'll see you in the next video, hopefully tomorrow.